Now, you might think corn is harmless, but it's quietly damaging and draining your strength, your focus, and your drive. It's not about the bedroom. Corn is making you mentally, emotionally, and even physically weaker. And here's how: it kills your motivation. Right, so we've talked about in general dopamine, right? And dopamine is that chemical that gets released in your brain when you're doing something that is pretty much pleasurable, right? So let's say you eat a candy bar, right? Or let's say you have pizza or burgers or one of these types of things. What happens? It feels good. It releases something in your brain. Maybe you're watching your favorite TV show, um, or maybe you're even spending time with someone, right? You get dopamine that's released in your brain, and then you have these things called super. I believe it's like super stimuli is what it's called, right? And corn is one of those, right? And basically, what it does is, so naturally you get a certain level of dopamine from, let's just say, nature, being outside or spending time with people. And then what happens is, as technology kind of came along, there are these certain things, like, for example, social media is just one of them, that is, it's a super stimuli. So to where your normal stimuli was maybe here, you have an extra stimuli that's all the way up here. And then, right, what happens? Well, naturally, your brain is going to want the higher one because it just makes you feel better. Maybe you forget about your problems, all that type of stuff, right? So naturally, you're going to want to be all the way up here. And that's why you'll see, a lot of times maybe people, even when they're walking outside, always on their phone. I'm, I'm bad with it too, for sure. But you're, basically, you kind of put your brain in a position to where there's this deficit now, and it's always going to want the higher amount of stimuli. And that's the same way, right, with corn. So basically, you have this crazy stimuli that you gave yourself, and now it's going to make basically any other task that you want to get done way harder to do. But what happens is when you decrease that gap and you decrease the stimuli and you bring it to a normal point, right? It's the same thing with watching YouTube shorts or Instagram, TikTok, all these things. It kind of conditions your brain for these quick dopamine hits, and it basically kills your motivation. I mean, a lot of times, if you see, for example, you go on TikTok and you're scrolling, and then you just stop and you try to do something long term, right? Let's say you're trying to write an essay or do something. It is way more difficult to just switch your brain and do something and focus for a long period of time because you were getting these quick dopamine hits, right? And it almost makes the real goals that you want, it's kind of boring or pointless, right? Look at your screen time, for example. That's probably a great factor because back in the day, I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember people's screen time, including my own, being as crazy. But as time has gone on, right, and these companies are spending millions of dollars to keep you on the phone longer, right? Because that's how they make more money. You'll see a lot more. You're probably spending a lot more time, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all these things. And especially with the corn, right? You have a crazy super stimuli. So what happens is, you might get on there, boom, relapse, and then what happens? You have no motivation to do anything else. You're not working out, you're not eating right. And it seems like when one piece of the puzzle kind of falls, everything else falls. So you relapse, and then maybe you eat poorly, you don't work out, you don't have, the discipline to go for a walk, maybe study, get your goals done. And it's kind of like a domino effect. Um, and it really kills your motivation. So that's number one. Number two, it weakens your discipline, right? And again, it's kind of the same piece there where it's training your brain for quick pleasure, right? And really, us as humans, every every human's brain, we want to go for those things that are easiest, right? No one wants to be in pain, and you know, it's almost the path of least resistance is how you can think about it. So you have your brain, and your brain always wants to go for the path of least resistance. So if something is easier and less painful, human nature is to go for that thing, right? And when you're training your brain in this way to pretty much take the easy way out, right? And you're unable to do delayed gratification, which is basically, right, you're delaying the reward for a period of time, right? What happens is your discipline overall just gets weaker. And even there's a piece of your brain as well that when you continue in this path of relapsing, watching the corn, all that, the PMO, what happens is there's a piece of your brain and your willpower actually gets weaker. Now you can look this up, all the science behind it, and you actually get less willpower. And what happens is, right, when your brain is kind of changing in that way, I mean, the less willpower you have, it just puts you back in that cycle. And then you wonder why, you're in the same place you've been for all of these years, and you're wondering why you can't quit when you're literally wiring your brain in a certain way, right? So keep that in mind whenever you think of super stimuli and you think of discipline. Remember, those are complete opposites. What you want is delayed gratification. Number 3, it destroys your confidence, right? So I would say confidence, in my opinion, is really built from keeping the promises that you tell yourself, right? Keeping the promises you tell yourself is one of the most important things you can do for building confidence, right? Because if I say I'm going to get up at 5 a.m., get to work, start grinding, what do you think's going to happen if I wake up and get to work, right? Okay, my brain is thinking, man, this guy said he was going to wake up. He set the alarm. He woke up. He's serious. Like, this is someone I can trust, right? But then on the other hand, you have someone who's in the exact same situation but hits the snooze alarm, sleeps in, right? What just happened? You're putting yourself in a position to where basically you didn't keep the promises that you kept to yourself. And what happens? You start to have doubt in your mind. You're like, man, can I really achieve this outcome? Can I really make this happen? And that is not a good thing, right? You don't want to put yourself in that type of position, right? And you start to feel the things like shame, guilt, and maybe even low self-worth because you can't keep the promises that you told yourself. You said that you would quit the hub a minute ago, right? You said maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, and you still have that issue to this day. It's been 2-3 years, you're in the exact same place. You know why I can say that? Because I felt the exact same way, right? I felt that exact same way until I changed my life through the methods and the tips that I tell you guys, right? And I also think it bleeds into how you carry yourself, right? Let's say you're playing a sport. Man, if you don't even have the discipline and I shouldn't say discipline, if you don't even have your habits on point, man, it just shows through everything you do. Maybe, you put yourself in a position to where maybe you're just not as confident to go out there and shoot your shot because you don't keep the promises that you tell yourself. How can you have that confidence when you're let's say playing a sport, playing basketball, playing soccer, maybe even going to work, right? If you're going to work, you're at your job. How can you keep the confidence and the promise? How can you even have that confidence if you have all these areas of compromise, right? When you have areas of compromise, your subconscious remembers that, right? The score is always there. It's always going to be there in the back of your mind. So, and when you get into those situations where you have to perform, I mean, a lot of times you just don't got the juice, man, because you all your energy is being depleted, pretty much, right? And you're letting your desires kind of control you. But when you can say no, and delay gratification, and be in control of your actions and where you want to be, that's when things could really change for you. Number 4, it destroys your performance, right? And we're talking about bedroom performance, right? So again, when you have this supernatural stimuli that has you all the way up here, what happens when you think you could be with shorty? It's you just don't perform at the same level, right? And you a lot of times, right, the arousal problem, right? Your blood flow might not be as good, right? You got the corn induced ED, because what happens is that dopamine that you were traditionally used to getting, and of course there are other factors to it, but that level that you were used to getting, you're not getting the same exposure, and it almost makes intimacy kind of feel dull or even stressful because you're always wondering in the back of your head, can I actually make this happen, right? And a lot of times, man, you probably can't make it happen, right? Because you can't fix this habit. And it's almost like a cycle. You're watching the corn, you can't perform. And you're wondering to yourself, man, why do I keep going through the same problems? Why am I in the same place year after year, month after month, day after day? And it's because, right, you're in control. I, I like this is one of the quotes that I try to live by. Your brain is in control of your hands. So use your hands, use your brain to control your hands. It's as simple as that, right? We don't have to make it more complicated. And of course, there are other details here. But remember, you're in control of your future, your potential. And you're probably watching this thinking, man, I have not reached my full potential. And I have areas of compromise, especially this area that I know if I was able to fix and improve, I would be able to reach the type of goals I want to achieve. Next, it ruins your time management. Man, when we talk about achieving goals, right, you have a set period of time that you can achieve, maybe it's you want a promotion at your job, right? Maybe you want to you want to be CEO, you want to be a boss, you want to be in a certain position. But what happens is when you're not in control of, these certain things, and your time especially, what happens is it starts to bleed over to other areas. So maybe you're not on point at work, right? Because exactly, right? Maybe you're not on point. You're just not focused. Your dopamine is so high, it's hard to even pay attention to the computer screen, right? And you're just losing hours of your time. And even let's say outside of work, you have certain goals for your life. Man, how can I go for the women that I want to go? How can I take care of my family? How can I do all of these things if I can't even control my own time in my own hands? Right? It really destroys your ability to build that momentum. And sure, you can see results by having these bad habits, but it would shorten the time dramatically if you were able to be in control of your time. Now, if you're dealing with corn-induced ED, right, and you want to fix for good, you need help, you've tried a lot of different things and you still can't put the pieces together, man, click the link below to book a free call and let's see how I can help you. Right? You don't have to do this all on your own. There are people who have gone through this for you, have built the path out, and it's time to stop experimenting, taking all of this time, taking years and years to figure a problem out when someone has the solution and can help you through it. So click the link below, book a call. Peace.